Picture this. It is late at night. You're having this really quiet conversation with a younger sibling, or maybe, a coworker you're mentoring.
Right.
And they're telling you about a problem, and you respond. You casually drop a piece of advice or, slightly stern reprimand, and suddenly you just completely freeze.
Oh, yeah. The words just sort of hang there in the air.
Exactly. A literal chill runs down your spine because you realize you just sounded exactly word for word like your parents.
Yeah.
Or that incredibly rigid boss you had 10 years ago. You said the exact phrase you swore you would never, ever say.
It's such a visceral reaction when that happens, and I think the specific flavor of that discomfort is really worth paying attention to. I mean, it rarely manifests as guilt, and it isn't exactly shame either.
Right, it's something else entirely.
Yeah, it's this profound, almost dizzying sense of disorientation. You feel a sudden crack in the foundation of who you actually thought you were.
Disorientation is like the perfect way to describe it, because we all walk around carrying this mental list of things we are absolutely immune to.
Oh, absolutely. The list of nevers.
Yeah, we tell ourselves, I'll never be greedy, or I'll never be a micromanager, or I'll never be cold and cynical. We build our entire identities around this list of immunities, usually when we're young and the world seems a bit simpler.
And then that late night conversation happens and the illusion just shatters. You realize you aren't really immune at all.
Right.
We construct this incredibly durable image of our ideal selves, operating under the assumption that our core nature is fixed. We inherently believe that just because we can clearly spot a flaw in someone else, we have somehow magically inoculated ourselves against developing that exact same flaw.
Like spotting it is the cure.
Exactly. But the reality of human development and how our identities form over time is far more complicated and, honestly, a lot more fragile.
Okay, well, let's unpack this. Our mission today in this deep dive is to figure out exactly why we slowly transform into the very people we once judged.
That's a big question.
It is. And we've got a really fascinating stack of sources to pull from today, weaving together psychology, sociology, and existential philosophy. Ultimately, we want to understand how facing this uncomfortable, messy truth about ourselves might actually be the only real way to retain our personal freedom.
To really understand the mechanics of how this transformation happens and how to stop it, we have to start by looking inside the human brain. We need to explore the massive, often invisible gap between our stated intentions and our actual real-world behavior.
So the psychological root of the issue. When you dig into the sources, you run into this fundamental psychological bias that almost feels like a personal attack.
It really does. It's the double standard we use when judging behavior. Basically, we evaluate ourselves entirely by our internal intentions, but we judge everyone around us by their external actions.
Yes, the double standard of attribution. It's so painfully true.
It's the engine behind so much of our self-deception. I mean, when you snap at a coworker, you don't view yourself as a cruel person. You tell yourself a rich, complex story about the context.
Right, like, I was exhausted, the project was behind schedule, I was under immense pressure.
Exactly. Your intention wasn't to be mean, you just had a momentary lapse due to stress.
But when someone else snaps at me, oh, that is just who they are. They are a fundamentally toxic, angry person. I definitely do not give them the grace of a complex backstory.
Yeah, you attribute their action to their core character, and this creates a highly effective illusion. It tricks you into believing that because your internal monologue is full of good intentions, you could never permanently become that toxic person.
Wow. Okay.
But psychology tells a much darker story about what actually drives us. Sigmund Freud argued decades ago that rational, conscious thought doesn't sit in the driver's seat of our behavior. We are propelled by hidden, unconscious motives.
So things like the primal need for survival, or the urge to belong to a group, or the desire to assert control.
Right, and when you layer Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs on top of those Freudian drives, the whole picture snaps into focus.
Yeah, Maslow is super relevant here. He essentially demonstrated that when your basic needs feel threatened, things like your financial security, your physical safety, or even your social standing, your high-minded moral ideals start to tremble.
Because the human brain is an incredibly efficient survival machine. It will ruthlessly prioritize keeping you safe and secure today over upholding your abstract moral principles for tomorrow.
You see this play out so vividly in the workplace. Take a young employee who absolutely despises their strict, bottom-line obsessed manager.
Oh, yeah. This young person swears that when they eventually get promoted, they will completely reinvent the role. They'll be empathetic, they'll prioritize work-life balance, they'll be the boss everyone loves.
We've all known that person.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have actually been that person.
Then they actually get the promotion and the context entirely changes. They aren't just an employee making suggestions anymore, they are the manager holding the bag.
The company raises the revenue targets.
Exactly. A major project is severely delayed by a vendor. The threat to their own security and standing becomes very real. And slowly, the behavior shifts.
They start sending emails on weekends.
They stop accepting excuses for late work. They start using the exact phrases they used to hate, like, well, work is work, we all have to make sacrifices.
And the wildest part of this mechanism is that they don't think they've become the bad guy. They don't look in the mirror and see a villain.
Not at all.
The brain just quietly updates the narrative to make this new behavior feel completely logical. It's a process called rationalization. So how does the brain actually do that? How does it wipe away the fact that they promised they'd never be this way?
By acting like a highly aggressive PR manager.
A PR manager, I like that.
Yeah, because cognitive dissonance is literal psychological pain. Your brain hates holding two conflicting truths, like, I am a fundamentally kind, empathetic person, and I just made my team work a 14-hour Saturday.
Right, those two things don't compute.
To relieve that pain, the brain doesn't change your action, it changes the lighting on the action. It highlights the impending deadline, the pressure from the board, the necessity of the sacrifice.
So it tells you that your strictness is actually a form of tough love.
Exactly. You haven't abandoned your morals, you've just matured and faced reality.
I have an analogy for this. It's exactly like being in the passenger seat of a car. When you're just along for the ride, it is incredibly easy to critique the driver.
Oh, for sure.
You judge them for being too aggressive, for taking a terrible route, for getting visibly frustrated with the traffic. But the moment you are the one behind the wheel, actively navigating that terrible traffic, running 20 minutes late for a crucial meeting with massive trucks honking at you.
Suddenly, you laying on the horn and cutting someone off feels completely and totally justified by the circumstances.
Exactly. That perspective shift changes the psychological reality entirely. You are no longer observing the stress, you are responsible for managing it, and your brain adjusts your moral boundaries to help you survive the journey.
It's a pure survival mechanism.
I want to push back on this a little bit, though, because listening to this framing, it almost sounds like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
How do you mean?
Well, if we just blame our bad behavior on hidden psychological drives, or Maslow's hierarchy, or the fact that we're in the driver's seat now and under stress, doesn't that just give people a free pass to act terribly?
That's a fair point.
Like, can't we just shrug it off as human nature and avoid taking any responsibility?
That is the exact trap many people fall into when they first study human behavior. But we can't let ourselves off the hook that easily.
Okay, good.
The missing piece of the puzzle here is that our internal psychology isn't operating in a vacuum. It is constantly reacting to powerful external systems. To really answer your pushback, we have to move our lens from psychology over to sociology.
The invisible hand of the system.
Right. The French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu gave us an incredibly useful concept for this called habitus. Yeah, habitus isn't just a simple habit like choosing to drink coffee every morning. It refers to the deeply ingrained, often unconscious ways we perceive the world and operate within it, which are shaped entirely by our environment.
So it's the physical and psychological demeanor you develop based on your family upbringing, your schooling, your social class, and your workplace.
Exactly.
It's like the fundamental operating system running in the background of your mind. It dictates what feels normal to you.
And here is the mechanism that changes us. When you enter a new system, like getting a major promotion, or moving to a new city, or gaining a new level of power, your habitus slowly alters to fit that new environment.
So you rarely sit down and consciously decide to change your morals.
No, almost never. Instead, the environment remolds your operating system to ensure you can effectively survive and thrive within it.
But think about what actually enforces this remolding. Michel Foucault framed this brilliantly when he looked at modern power dynamics.
Foucault is essential here.
He argued that in modern society, power isn't about physical force or blatant coercion. It's about invisible structures. It's the unwritten rules of your corporate culture, the specific metrics on your performance review, the subtle social norms of your new neighborhood.
Foucault's insight is vital because it highlights how we internalize those invisible structures. The system doesn't need a dictator to force you to behave a certain way. It simply sets up the rules of the game so that you begin to discipline yourself.
You regulate your own behavior to meet the system's metrics.
Exactly. And eventually, you start actively protecting the very systems you used to hate because your own success and survival are now intimately tied to them.
You see this vividly when you look at Karl Marx's ideas on material conditions. Take a young, fiery idealist who believes that money isn't everything, that corporate life is a trap, and that society is far too obsessed with wealth.
A classic archetype.
Then they move to a major city to pursue their passions. Suddenly, their rent skyrockets. The cost of groceries doubles. They can't afford health care.
The reality check.
The sheer material reality of trying to survive in that city profoundly shapes their consciousness. Within a few years, they care a whole lot more about their salary, their job title, and their 401k.
Marx would argue that this isn't necessarily a moral failing of the individual. It's a predictable, structural result of their material conditions changing.
The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky provided such a sharp observation on this dynamic too. He pointed out that judging other people is incredibly seductive because it makes us feel morally superior.
Oh, we love to feel superior.
We sit on our high horse and condemn people for being greedy or ruthless. But Dostoevsky warned that the moment we find ourselves in their exact material circumstances, carrying their exact financial or social burdens, our judgment usually crumbles.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Listening to how these sociological shifts happen, it's like we're all dropped into a massively complex multiplayer video game.
Oh, I like this analogy.
You might start the game just wanting to explore the beautiful scenery. You want to be the pacifist explorer who just enjoys the art. But if the game's underlying coterie, the invisible structure, strictly rewards you with survival and upgrades only if you hoard gold coins and defeat other players.
And punishes you severely if you don't.
Yeah.
Your character literally starves or gets eliminated if you ignore the coins.
Right. So eventually, no matter your original beautiful intentions, you're going to stop looking at the scenery.
You're going to start optimizing your route to collect the most coins. You start playing the game the way the system demands. Your entire psychology has been rewired by the mechanics of the game.
The environment dictates the incentives, and human beings are incredibly adaptable, incentive-seeking creatures. Over time, you align with those rewards just to keep playing.
So if we have the brain constantly rationalizing our actions to avoid pain, and external systems quietly reshaping our underlying operating system, what happens when you finally stop, look in the mirror, and realize your identity has completely shifted?
That is the breaking point.
What happens when you realize you are playing for the gold coins you used to despise?
It triggers a massive existential crisis. It breaks that beautiful, comforting narrative of the immune, ideal self we talked about at the beginning.
Right, the crack in the foundation.
When you realize you are acting like the person you once despised, you experience a sort of existential freefall. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre explored the mechanics of this dread deeply. He famously said that humans are condemned to be free.
Condemned to be free. I mean, it sounds like a paradox. Why would freedom be a condemnation?
Well, Sartre believed we are not born with a fixed essence. An acorn has a fixed essence, right? Its biological programming dictates that it will become an oak tree.
Sure.
But a human being, we have to create our own essence through our daily choices and actions. We are essentially a blank slate reacting to the world.
That sounds wonderfully liberating on the surface, honestly.
It does, but Sartre knew it was utterly terrifying. Because if you have no fixed permanent essence, there is nothing automatically anchoring you to the good version of yourself.
Oh, wow.
The freedom to create yourself is simultaneously the freedom to destroy yourself, or to mold yourself into a monster based on your environment.
That is a staggering burden to carry. And it perfectly connects to Albert Camus, who pointed out that our core tragedy as humans is that we desperately want our lives to be a neat, cohesive story.
We really do.
We want to be the principled protagonist who never, ever compromises. But Camus argued that humans are inherently contradictory. As Dostoevsky noted, we contain multitudes.
Exactly.
We are capable of immense, breathtaking love, and we are simultaneously capable of extreme, cold-blooded cruelty, depending on the context.
We constantly oscillate between the saint and the sinner. And sociologist Irving Goffman gives us a very practical way to view this internal contradiction. He compared social life to a theatrical stage.
So we are all actors.
Right. And the systems we live in force us to play different roles. You might play the role of the tough, uncompromising boss at 10 a.m. and the role of the gentle, nurturing parent at 6 p.m.
The environment changes, the costume changes, the behavior changes.
The scariest part of this whole process is that the transformation into the villain role doesn't happen like it does in the movies.
Right. There is no dramatic origin story where you fall into a vat of toxic waste and suddenly become evil.
No, it happens through hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny, almost imperceptible compromises. It's choosing to stay silent in a meeting just one time because you don't want to rock the boat.
It's prioritizing your own comfort over a subordinate's need just once.
It's the erosion of the ideal self by 1,000 tiny cuts. Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the absolute hardest thing for a human being to do is to look at oneself in the mirror without makeup.
And he didn't mean literal cosmetics.
No, he meant looking at your own reflection without the psychological justifications, without the brilliant PR manager of your brain rationalizing everything, without the comforting stories you tell yourself.
Just looking at the raw, unvarnished truth of your daily actions and compromises. Which raises an incredibly tough question for you listening right now. If we are constantly just reacting to our environments, if our brains are endlessly rationalizing our bad behavior, if we're just playing different roles on Goffman's stage and making these tiny micro-compromises every day, is there even a real core self underneath all of that? Or are we just a walking, talking collection of adaptations to whatever system we happen to be standing in at the time?
That is the ultimate existential question, and if you sit with that thought for too long without a framework, it can easily lead to dark places.
I can imagine.
It can lead to deep cynicism, where you assume everyone is just a chameleon and morals don't actually exist. Or it can lead to total despair, where you just give up trying to be a good person because the systemic pressures are too strong.
But importantly, we don't have to be stranded in that despair.
No, we don't.
There is a very practical, ancient toolkit designed specifically for surviving this realization, and that is Stoicism.
Stoic defense.
I love how this reframes the whole philosophy. Usually pop culture tells us that Stoicism is just about suppressing your emotions and acting tough.
Oh, that's such a misconception.
But here, it's presented as a highly active strategy for maintaining your identity against the crush of the system.
Because true Stoicism isn't about pretending you are a perfect, unfeeling statue. It actually starts with the exact opposite assumption.
Okay.
The Stoics built their entire framework on the fundamental belief that humans are weak, deeply flawed, and highly susceptible to the pressures of their environment.
They didn't deny the mechanisms of rationalization or systemic pressure. They assumed them to be true.
Right.
Which honestly feels like a massive relief after all that existential dread. It's basically saying, hey, it's okay, we're all a mess, now let's deal with it.
It is a profound relief. Consider Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of Rome, arguably the most powerful man on the planet at the time, uniquely capable of changing the system at will. Yet his private journals, what we now call meditations, are filled with morning routines where he actively reminds himself of human flaws. He would wake up and tell himself, today I will meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.
But the crucial part of that exercise was reminding himself that he shared that exact same nature.
Exactly. He never allowed himself the dangerous illusion of immunity.
He knew, unequivocally, that he could be just as awful as the people he was judging. The philosopher Epictetus echoed this exact sentiment.
He did.
He taught his students that remembering your own endless capacity for error is the ultimate antidote to arrogance. If you know deep down that you were just one bad day, one stressful job, or one financial crisis away from becoming the person you hate, you cannot be arrogant.
Seneca gave us perhaps the most practical, actionable tool of all. Seneca was a wealthy statesman who advised Emperor Nero, which is the ultimate example of trying to navigate a toxic, dangerous system.
To say the least.
Right. Seneca ended every single day with a rigorous self-examination. Before going to sleep, he asked himself 3 specific questions.
Okay, what were they?
What did I do wrong today? What did I do right? And how can I do better tomorrow?
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, how does asking 3 simple questions at night actually stop you from turning into your terrible old boss?
It works because of what those questions mechanically create in your mind. These daily checks do not magically make you a perfect person. You will still make mistakes.
Sure.
You will still succumb to systemic pressure. But what they do is create a gap. They carve out a tiny space of awareness between your automatic reflex and your conscious choice, between the immense crushing pressure of the system and your actual action.
Without that daily reflection, you are just reacting blindly to the environment, letting your habitus reshape you without your consent.
But in that small gap of awareness, true freedom exists.
That makes perfect sense. It's basically like running a daily software diagnostic check on your own brain.
I love that framing.
You can't just assume your mental software is running flawlessly because it worked yesterday.
Yeah.
You have to actively hunt for the bugs.
Right.
You have to look for the rationalizations, the little excuses, and the tiny micro-compromises every single night, and clear them out before they get hard-coded and become permanent features of your personality.
You are actively, continuously debugging your own habitus.
Yeah.
And that requires a level of radical honesty that most people are just afraid to practice.
This has been such a profound deep dive. To bring it all together for you listening, you are not a finished statue. You are not carved in marble with a fixed essence.
No, you're not.
You are a continuous, messy, highly adaptable, ongoing process. Believing that you are entirely immune to becoming the things you hate isn't a sign of strong character. It's a dangerous, comforting illusion that leaves you vulnerable.
Absolutely.
When you finally accept that you are highly susceptible to change, two amazing things happen. First, you become infinitely less judgmental of the people around you because you realize you might just be one circumstance away from standing in their shoes. And second, you become much more honest with yourself. You start guarding that gap between reflex and choice.
I want to leave you with a final thought that builds on everything we've explored today.
Okay.
We've spent this entire discussion looking at how time, pressure, and systems can make us adopt the traits of the people we once deeply despised. But what about the flip side of that coin?
Oh, that's interesting.
If our identities are truly that fluid, if we are that adaptable, what does that mean for the things and the people we fiercely love and defend right now? If we must fight tooth and nail, running daily diagnostics just to not become what we hate, how hard must we fight to hold on to what we love?
Wow. That is exactly the kind of question to keep you awake at night in the best possible way. Keep observing yourselves, keep running those daily diagnostics, and keep diving deep. Until next time.
Take care and stay curious.